Hello guys and welcome back. In the latest April balance patch, the Apocalypse Striker and the Focus Crystal have been nerfed. Now, besides the Focus Crystal, the Barrage implant has been nerfed as well, and some of the other implants have been reworked and nerfed, so there is a lot of changes going on, and I will cover all of them. But today I will start with the Apocalypse Striker. After all, this is one of the players' favorite ships in the game, primarily used in PvE, although it has PvP applications as well. So with pulse leaders I have 3077 DPS, and this is the classic high sec build that a lot of players use. Of course, you might have a different build, but the overall general purpose for this ship is about the same. The nanocore is the illusionary ghost nanocore. Again, it is not upgraded. I keep the default, I just keep the primary attributes, and in this case it's 19.20% extra laser damage. And I'm fairly happy with the DPS output on this ship. So let's take a look at the Focus Crystal. The Focus Crystal has been nerfed several times in the last 3 months, and honestly I don't really mind the nerfs. After all, if you ask me, all of the implants need a nerf, and currently the most overpowered implant besides the Focus Crystal is the drone bomb implant. That one hasn't been reworked, and it should be nerfed because there are ships in the game that allow you to have like 5000 DPS with enormous alpha damage. For example, the Statius, which can be very sneaky, and you have no counter against that. So if a Statius with drone bombs decloaks right beside you, you are probably going to be dead in the next couple seconds, because by the time you react, your ship is dead. Now, the attributes of the Focus Crystal have been changed and nerfed over time. This ship used to have, with this exact build, used to have about 36,000 DPS, or 24,000 DPS right at the launch of the implants. Now the DPS is just a fraction of what it used to be, and this is all being tested. This was all tested on the same Apocalypse Striker that you see here. Now I have 3 general units that are focused on DPS, and I have one tracking computer unit because in one of the last updates the siege mode has been nerfed as well, so you lost range, and it means you have to compensate for the low range by using multiple tracking computers, which in return did reduce the maximum DPS of the Apocalypse Striker. So the ship has been nerfed in multiple ways, not just by the implant nerf. The ship itself has been nerfed. If you remember, the only siege mode that has been buffed was the siege mode on the Raven Striker, and that buff wasn't really that noticeable on paper. But the nerf on the Apocalypse and the nerf on the other Strikers was quite noticeable. On the Apocalypse, you did lose a significant amount of DPS just by losing those extra 10%, just by losing that 10% extra range from the siege mode. So in order to compensate for that, you have to use tracking computers. Technically, you can use one tracking computer if you use the tracking computer general unit, but if you are still a little bit close, in some cases the enemy ships can actually hit you. So let's check out the performance of the beam lasers. I will set my approach to 86, and let's start with the first target. And well, this is why you should not drink and fly your ship. Well, I said beam lasers. Well, these are pulse lasers. And yeah, I messed up the weapon, so let me quickly dock and let me quickly change the weapon. Yeah, those are some weird beam lasers with like 70-kilometer range.
Active.
I wasn't really sure what was up with my weapons, why the range was so low, but yeah, I have been using the the pulse laser. Now the pulse laser Apocalypse Striker is, it's pretty good. It's a pretty good choice, but it's a more active way of playing. You have to be more active with the pulse Apocalypse. You will get more DPS, but low range, and you might get hit a bit more. Now this is the beam laser Apocalypse Striker, 2.5 thousand DPS. So honestly, not bad. I'm quite satisfied with the DPS on that. Although, if I recall, that used to be a little bit higher, but in any case, nerfs have been made, and I believe the passive effect has also been changed. Now, the only implant that might actually remain the same is I think it's the Pulse Crystal. Haven't seen any change done to that one, or perhaps there's changes I just didn't notice it. In any case, I will test it out as well. But first, of course, the most important implant out there is the Focus Crystal, because I know a lot of you guys are using this ship for PvE, and I have been jumped by a bunch of these ships in PvP, but they failed because, yeah, the Apocalypse might have some very good DPS, and lasers melt shields. Although lasers will not do that much damage on armor. That's where your DPS does fall significantly. So against let's say a shield tank capital, yeah, I can see that the Apocalypse Striker fleet can be deadly to those, but against armor tank capitals, it's not going to work that well, as I've showed when I got jumped by a bunch of Apocalypse Strikers. And I got, well, unsurprisingly anymore at this moment, I'm still getting actively reported for supposedly paying the developers to make my ship super tanky, which is hilarious to be honest. And yeah, I get reported for a lie like that, which is very, very funny. But in any case, so far my main account hasn't been banned, so I should be good. Would be stupid if I get banned for a lie like that. But in any case, let's go to the good old Apocalypse Striker over here. Now, one thing that I noticed that is poking my eyes at the moment is the fact how slow it started to charge the implant. Now, before the nerf, it actually was charging quite quickly. It used to charge quite rapidly, actually. And for a second I thought that I heard some voices outside. Is my house haunted? I have no idea. Could be. In any case, that kinda caught me by surprise and off guard. There's no one around me and I hear voices. Lovely. A haunted house. In any case, the one thing that I notice that is significantly changed is the implant charge. Now I have the implant on level 45, and obviously the level 45 attribute is going to make your DPS a bit more sustained. Even if you miss, you can immediately jump back to like 53% charge, and that does actually help a lot, to be honest. It really sucks that the level 45 is so expensive. The only reason why I actually like the level 45 attribute that you get from this implant is the fact that if you miss, you can just quickly go back to about 53% or 50%, which, like I mentioned before, does help with the DPS. After all, if you miss the target, you lose all the stacks and you lose all the extra DPS that you get from the implant. Now, I'm fairly sure that in the patch notes that they said that they would increase the charge speed but reduce the maximum DPS. Now, from what I see here, it does kind of feel that it can charge quickly, but at the same time it also feels that it's charging slowly. So not really sure what's going on with that. They did say that they will increase the charge speed of the implant so that you can get the maximum DPS faster, but the overall maximum DPS is reduced. I can definitely see the reduced maximum DPS. I feel like I lost about 1.5 to 2000 DPS. I remember I used to have like 10,000, 9,000 DPS with a setup like this in siege mode and running one heatsink. So the nerf is there, but how significant and how big of a nerf is it? Now, the fact that the nerfs have been happening over time and slowly doesn't really show the immediate effect of how much the ship has been changed. Now, on day one, basically when the implants have been out and when I got a chance to try it out for the first time, I used to get an average of 45, 50,000, 60,000 hits per cycle with the beam lasers. Now on average that's about 20,000, 30,000, sometimes 17,000. I think the maximum hit that I'll get throughout this video is like 55,000. So the overall DPS nerf and alpha damage nerf is definitely there. It's noticeable, and maybe a lot of you guys will probably not notice anything, but the nerf is there. Now I'm someone who spots the smallest of things, and I just, you know, I'm cursed to have a good memory, so I remember all the details from a lot of things. But at the same time, sometimes I just, you know, forget things. But if there is something that I rely on, it's my memory, and yeah, there is a difference. There's definitely a massive difference. Now, is the difference going to make a, let's say, big impact on your, let's say, ISK per hour high sec farm? Well, that's a good question, because in one of the recent nerfs, when they nerfed the siege mode, I could say that I definitely felt a significant change in how the ship behaved. Now, in this nerf, in the latest nerf, in this April balance patch, honestly, the difference is there, but it's not really as impactful as the siege mode nerf. Although, again, if you ask me, I would still change and rework all the implants. Would probably be a good thing. Now, when I say that, I'm mostly talking about the idea to make all the implants have only a passive effect, although for that it's a little bit too late, to be honest, because it's already well established that the implants will have an active effect. But if only the implants were giving passive effects with unlockable attributes with extra stats, I feel like that would be a better idea than to have an active mode that gives you like massive DPS in a click. But again, feel free to tell me what you think about that. Is the passive way the better way to go, or do you guys like and prefer to have the implants have an active mode? I'm very curious to know what you guys think about that. So I have 13,000 DPS with full DPS. I remember I used to have 15,000 DPS, and 3 months ago, with the same build on the same ship using the same implants, the DPS was 19 to 20,000. So over the past couple months, the Apocalypse Striker lost about 7-8,000 DPS, at least in the case of this Apocalypse, with the current build, with the current implant, and with the current nanocore. Now, I know a lot of you guys probably don't have the implant on level 45, and so I'll be honest with you, 100%, 1000% real with you. Level 45 is, I don't know, I don't think it's worth it. Most of my implants are level 15. I have 2 implants on level 30, 1 implant on level 33, which is the barrage implant, and it just doesn't feel like it's worth to go on level 45. Although now with the nerfs, I see that the charging might be taking a little bit longer, despite the developers saying that they somehow improved the implant perhaps actually, no, before I jump to conclusions, perhaps they actually meant that. Let me go and just Google that, because I don't like to give out bad information here. Let me just go and see what the patch notes say about the April balance patch. Let me find it, if there is, if it's still on the site. But I'm fairly sure that they were talking about making the focus crystal charge faster, and honestly I don't feel the faster charging at all. If anything, it's charging ridiculously slow. And I've been actually playing quite often, testing out things. So okay, knock this in that. No, it's not this. Lightweight ships, logistic, barrage, support projection, focus crystal. Thanks to its unique stacking mechanism that doesn't consume durability, the focus crystal is perfect for fast weapons, but not so much for slow, less accurate weapons. Its maximum damage is high, causing massive losses when it misses the target. So we have made the following adjustment to make its strength more reasonable. Its applicability wider and the fitting strategy more diverse. To reduce the loss in critical misses, we have improved the basic stacking speed of the stacking speed of the rapid charging branch, and reduce the cooldown time of crystal stimulation. To cool down its advantage in maximum damage compared with other implants, we keep the damage increase without changing the speed within a. Oh, okay. Without change the speeds within a given time frame. This shortens the time to achieve the maximum bonus and reduces the maximum damage. In addition, we have also optimized the crystal enhancement branch by making sure it takes effect once selected. Okay, well that, I guess, explains it. Although my brain is probably not working properly today, so my apologies for that. Now, this implant used to have 200%, then 80% maximum charge, now 144%, and I think the overview here, the icon is not showing properly. I think my game here might be a little bit bugged, because that stack should be reduced to 120, not 144, but in any case it does have the reduced effect. So overall, I'm happy that the implants are getting worked on, and still having that hope, that small hope, that the implants will be brought to a form of balance. At least, you know, back then I made the prediction that we have three options. Basically, the first option would be a immediate massive nerf, which would definitely be extremely noticeable. Second option was that they're not going to change anything, and the third option was that they're going to go and do a gradual nerf over time. And I guess they're going with option 3, a gradual nerf over time, which in the end will result in a massive nerf if we compare the implant from day 1 to the current implant performance. And we will see what will happen next. I haven't really tried out the barrage implant that often lately, but I will be going on the Macarial again. I'll be going on the high power crawl and thermal circulation on most of the ships. The thermal circulation got buffed, its DPS got buffed, and I'm very curious to know and see what is my maximum possible DPS on the Megatron Striker. That is a ship that I use for PvP, and I'm very curious to see how much DPS I got on that thing. I think it should be a 25 to 30% buff, but we will see. We will see. Generally speaking, should be okay, because the effect of the thermal circulation is really weird, because it doesn't last long. It lasts for like a couple hits, and then it quickly goes into overheat, or you have to wait for the manual overheat to charge the implant back up to 70, because The implant kicks in at 70 and lasts until 99, and then you lose all the DPS when you hit overheat mode. So the best option how to use the thermal circulation is not to overheat it. And I think I showed you how that works, but I will do it again when I jump on that implant as well. Hyperical also got reworked a little bit. Now it's using a lot less durability, and it does last a little bit longer now, which was a problem with the implant. It was consuming a lot of durability, but at the same time it didn't last long. Well, it lasted longer than the thermal circulation, that's for sure, but the overall durability was a major issue on that one. So yeah, overall definitely interesting changes, and I'm very curious to see what effect does it have on the ships that we fly. Now, as for the Apocalypse Striker, does it break the ship? Well, not really. I mean, as you can see here, I'm just flying through the ships. Now, of course, I know this is a level 45 implant, and a lot of you guys have the implant on level 15, level 30, and I would say don't go to level 45. It's not really worth it to go on level 45 unless you have a lot of ISK, I guess. Then if you have a lot of ISK to waste, then I guess go for it, but level 15, level 30 is, I think, the sweet spot on all implants, and above that is, you know, not really worth to go, especially because it really just costs an insane amount of ISK, and I hate the fact that it's so expensive. I really hate the fact that it's so expensive. Should not be that expensive, but unfortunately it is what it is. Perhaps with time the price will drop. I know at one point there was a crash in the price of the so-called upgrade materials, and to get the implant from 0 to 30 it was like less than 20 billion. Now it's like 50-60 billion, so maybe even less than that. I know that the most crazy pricing is from 30 to 45. It didn't take much for me to go from 0 to 30 on my barrage implant and on the thermal circulation, but definitely from 30 to 45, yeah, that is a extreme amount of ISK that is just, you know, just don't even look at it, because it's just so much. So 15 and 30 is more than enough. And well, I believe most nerfs are going to be noticeable at level 30. Some of my friends have told me that the nerfs were made on the level 30 attribute, so the level 30 focus crystal will definitely feel the change. Although again, from my personal experience, I don't really think that a lot of you guys will notice a massive difference. You will probably notice that it takes maybe a little bit longer to charge, maybe that you no longer do like 40,000 alpha. It drops perhaps from 40,000 to like 35,000 or something like that. But again, the damage varies anyway, so in the grand scale of things, right away, I don't think that anyone will notice anything. But I'm very curious what you guys think. Did you guys notice any change on your implant? Did your DPS drop, and by how much? Because again, I'm very interested to see how this April balance patch has affected your ship. Now, in PvP, I feel like that might be a bit more obvious than in PvE. After all, in PvE, you just blow up NPC ships, while in PvP you're shooting at other players. Perhaps tanking the Focus Crystal Apocalypse Strikers is going to be easier. Now, I got jumped by an Apocalypse Striker fleet with high level Focus Crystal before the patch, so I was able to tank them really well back then, and I think I'll be able to tank them about the same way now. After all, you all saw how I built my Revelation. It's a super trunk built for maximum tank, ridiculously expensive. Rig integrations, the most expensive ones. Yeah, the Revelation is expensive, and it uses A types, B types, and things like that. So that ship is built to last, and it did last quite a bit. It does still last, although I'm not really sure when the Chamosh will be released. The Chamosh won't have the armor resistance. That's the catch. So the Chamosh technically is less tanky than the Revelation, which is interesting. But we will see how that will work when that thing is released, because you can bet I'll be flying that thing. That's my that's the only capital ship that I'm personally interested in this game. So, my thoughts on the Apocalypse Striker after the nerf. You know, it's still pretty good, and I'll say this right away. Expect more nerfs. I'm honestly just being real with you. I would expect more nerfs. I really do expect more nerfs, not just on the focused crystal, but I believe that it's going to be a dynamic cycle. Basically, they'll keep modifying, changing all the implants. There'll be nerfs, there'll be buffs, there are going to be reworks, there are probably going to be new implants as well. So that's what I think will happen. I've been saying that for a while now, and so far that's exactly what has been happening for the last couple months. Now, one thing that I'll address, though, that the developers have to realize, they have to really take a look at some of the ships in the game. For example, as I mentioned before, the drone bombs, they are just way too disgusting. I'm just again being real. They're just way too disgusting. Imagine a Stratos, a DPS Stratos, built for maximum DPS, just having like, I don't know, 5000 DPS. We have the drone bombs on level 15, 30. I mean, even 15 is actually overpowered. Like, with level 15 you have like 3.5 thousand DPS on the Stratos with a DPS build. That wrecks, that thing wrecks. And if you have the offense drones, that's even more DPS. So, yeah, you basically decloak nearby any ship, can be a battlecruiser, cruiser, anything, and just unload the bombs on the target. It kills them in seconds, and that's one of the most broken implants at the moment. That has to be nerfed. So surprisingly, the focus crystal isn't the. I would say that it's not the most broken implant anymore. It's still ridiculously strong, like all implants. Don't get me wrong, it's still strong, okay? But there are some other implants because of some other ships that are just a lot more nasty than the focus crystal. So in the end, if you have this ship and if you enjoy the focus crystal, you don't have to worry much, because the ship's performance is still going to be top notch. You still can do the same thing that you've been doing with the ship. Nothing really changes. You might notice a little bit less DPS, a little slower charging, and you know, things like that. Perhaps even it will charge faster. I don't know, perhaps I just expected the charging to be too quick, but perhaps you noticed it to be charging faster, perhaps it will charge slower. But in the end, in the grand scale of things, if you like to fly this ship, you can keep on flying it. It's still going to be a good choice for PvE, for PvP, for a fleet operation. It still can do the same thing that it's been doing for a while. So I hope that you guys have enjoyed. I hope that I could help you at clearing out the details of the implant. If you would like to support me, feel free to like and subscribe. It does help a lot. And with that being said, stay safe, fly safe, and I'll see you next time.